I figure I would just go ahead and walk you guys through some of the things I've found working on my own Versalift Tel 29, and I've got a couple of these trucks, Versalifts, and I'm just going to kind of go through some of the stuff that I've learned working on them. And I am no expert. I just do my own service and repair because typically it's pretty expensive to have a lot of these trucks end up out of service because the telephone companies have to spend so much money on having them serviced. One of the things I found with the Versalift versus like Alltech and some of the others, the Versalift, a lot of the parts you have to get from the dealer. A lot of them they don't have aftermarket, so don't be shocked if you go down to get a hydraulic pump and it's a dealer only item and you pay $400 versus paying $150. But also in the same respects, my friends that have Alltechs have had this boom hydraulic ram and or lines replaced several times, where the Versalift I've never had to do it. So I don't know if that's just my luck, but I think maybe it's probably because it's maybe a little bit better design, and a lot of the parts are dealer only. So anyway, some of the things that I found on this lift, I'm going to kind of walk you through some of them in case maybe you're new. Maybe you just bought one, maybe you don't know anything about them at all. I've learned a lot, like I said, self-taught stuff. Basic hydraulic repair. The hydraulics are actually fairly simple. I've realized that there are some pressure sensors that if they're disconnected, that some of the systems won't work. So if for some reason your hydraulic system isn't working, for instance, I'm going to give you an example. On this lift here, if you disconnect this sensor in the back right here, your extend and retract won't work. So what I believe this is a thing to this is some sort of a safety mechanism, this little guy right here. And if these wires are not connected properly or are not conducting electricity, so you could have a problem with your extend and retract not working, and it feels like it's going to work but it won't. It feels like the hydraulics are trying to work but they won't. Then you could have a bad connection with your wire panel here at one of these connectors, which there's a few if you didn't notice. So I would always look there first. I would always say check if something's not working. I would check, not working at all. I would just start checking connections all the way down on the wiring and make sure that it's all connected and working, and look for broken wires and stuff like that. The filters on these, I've changed them about myself about once a year, 2 years. You probably, I don't know what the actual interval is. I haven't been able to find a service manual for these, so I don't know the exact time and when to do it. I just know that they want you to take it to the dealer to do it, and if you're doing that, then it's just going to cost you a ton of money. Learn how to do some of this stuff yourself if you can. And if you notice here, all over, there's grease fittings for your rotation bearing and stuff like that. Make sure you take advantage of those and grease it often. There's one there. There's a couple others. Just walk the truck and really look for them. spend the time, look for the rotation bear, not just for the rotation bearing, but for all the places that have grease fittings. They're all over the place, so make sure that you periodically go through and grease everything so that you don't have an issue. You know, other than that, there's really not a lot of stuff that goes wrong. Now, you know, you should always check your hoses, your hydraulic hoses, to make sure that this hose is actually not a hose, it's actually a wire shield. So and go through all your hydraulic hoses and make sure that they're hooked up, you know, that they're not getting frayed or bulged or anything like that. You know, those are basic hydraulic things to look for. Like if your tractor has cracks, and a bunch of cracks in the hydraulic lines, you need to get really good ANSI safe stuff for your Versalift. They do have them done universally. You can get them at like Hose Man and stuff like that, I believe. So that's what I haven't had to change a bunch of that stuff because it's all pretty well protected. It's a really good idea to keep your truck in the shade or inside. I have it under the trees, which, yeah, you get some of this stuff, but it does keep it from getting sun damaged. So really important. Some of the other things is you have your sight glass here for your it's all the way, just barely, you can see a little bit of air there for your hydraulics. So you should check that regularly. You check you have on mine, it has 3 different controls. I have some back here. These are actually control buttons. There's the top and then there's the bottom underneath. They look just like the top ones, and those you can use to control your lift from right where you're working on it. Check your seals. One of the things that tends to leak is your hydraulic, the hydraulic ram seals, which are called cylinders. And so if you find a good cylinder repair guy, you can take the cylinders off and actually take them to them. So you need to look right here where your seal is, see if there's ever a leak, and if it's coming out here or if it's coming out around the ring around it. So sometimes it'll be leaking from the seal, and sometimes, like mine right now, is leaking from the ring around it. And sometimes if it's just the ring around it, if you maybe put it at rest, which is kind of difficult to do, you might be able to just tighten that ring up because it just has threads on it. If you have an issue with your cylinder actually leaking, and you can safely perch your boom at a higher level to where you can remove it, it is pretty simple. There's just a pin here, and this is the heavy cylinder, and there's a pin right here, and if you can get that boom at rest, you can actually remove that and replace those seals. Even do it yourself, or you can take it to the hydraulic guy, and like they charge based on the weight and size of it. So if it's not that heavy, they don't charge as much, but it is still, in my opinion, kind of expensive. They charge me $125 for the little ram way up there for the perching of the boom. So for this big one, they'd probably charge me $250, and the parts are about $50. So, and it doesn't take more than a couple hours or so. So that's something like that. If you can learn how to do it and just take it apart, there's not a lot of pieces in there. They're pretty simple. It's just a couple seals and an O-ring, and that's it. So and just check it out, and you know, yeah, maybe some guys will polish it out inside, but you can probably just replace the seals and it'll probably be just fine. Just so you know, I've done a little bit of that stuff myself. The other things that go wrong is if you have a switching system, you know, or you have a joystick. The joystick is, I think, I mean, as long as you keep your lines clean, it's probably a little bit simpler design. When they have these here that go, the solenoids are actually in that little box where I was showing you. You can push the tops and bottoms of it. That's the solenoids for these, and it's a basic circuit. I mean, if usually it's a bad connection, so you can take this panel off right here and just check those connections if you're having a problem with the switches not working. And that's 99% of the time the problem is always going to be connection. I mean, sometimes it'll be something else, but more than likely it's going to be connection. If you have to replace your hydraulic pump, which I've had to do that on this unit, I've had to replace the hydraulic pump. Unfortunately, I tried to cross-reference the numbers for it. On the Alltech, they're available in aftermarket, but this one was a dealer only. And this is a very old unit, so this is from a 91. So, I mean, if it's that old and they don't have it, the dealer did have it in stock, so, but it did cost a very big price. So it was like $400 for a pump that's as big as this right here, which should have been, you know, $150 to $200. So those are the things to think about with Versalift versus Alltech and some of the others that, like I said, the parts, a lot of them we found are dealer only. So which is, you know, yeah, like I said, it's a double-edged sword. Yeah, sometimes you get better quality parts, the parts last longer, maybe you have less problem with the lift. So it depends on you and what you want. I've been really happy with Versalift. I'd probably definitely buy their machines again. And you know, like I said, I haven't had to do this ram on either one of my trucks that my friends have had to do 2 or 3 times on their Alltechs. So yeah, on the, if you have a generator start and you're just new to the truck, one of the things I found is a lot of guys will sit there and push the button like you're starting a car. You push it and they'll let off as soon as the engine starts. With this system that they have in this truck, you push it and hold it until the engine is actually running. So I'm going to do that really quick just to show you what it's like. So you hold it there, then let off. So if you have a generator operated system, now this truck here is equipped with this also, but it's not working, so it's probably a bad connection. Have to check that out. But it also has this, what they call emergency power, which is, what it has is it has 2 hydraulic pumps. You have one hydraulic pump on the generator, and you have one hydraulic pump that's run by electric motor. And right now it's probably got a bad connection right here in this panel. So I'll probably take that off and give that a check, because I go through the equipment, you know, at least annually. You should have it inspected annually as far as the rules go. You know, that's up to you. But those are the types of things, you know, when the inspector comes, he's going to look at that and say, oh, well, that needs to work, and he's going to fix it, he's going to charge you. And some of them are pretty cheap. There's a guy that does like the whole state of California, and he drives all around doing it. He's not that expensive. So, you know, some of the guys are pretty reasonable. If you find one that's really good, you stick with them if you want to get your stuff repaired. But a lot of the stuff probably you can help do yourself and save some money. But those are pretty much the basics of the lift. The other problems you'll have are electronics, like this quit working for me, and it's a bad connection somewhere. So somewhere it could be actually the wire that goes through, and I have never fixed it because it just seems like it'd be a hassle just for something that simple that I don't really use that much. I'd like to have a tool, you know, up there sometimes, but you know, that doesn't work. So this, like I said, this ram right here, what happened with it is got some paint on, so on the actual shaft, you don't want to get any kind of paint. So if you're painting your lift for maintenance, trying to keep the rust down, something like that, make sure that you don't get any paint on the shiny surface right here, because it will cause your seal to fail. So keep that in mind. So that I had to have that one. I had that one rebuilt, which next time I would definitely do myself after I did another one. It's very, very easy. So again, one more thing, if you're new to one of these trucks, you've just got it, maybe you don't really know how to use it, maybe you're just learning it or whatever. How it works is on the upper controls. On the lower controls, you just, you can go up, down, stow, and all that right from the lower controls. But from the upper controls, you have to have this switch on, and then you can use all the others. So extend, retract, stow, extend, I think extend is over here. Extend, retract, west, east, which is your rotation, all that. So you have to have this one switched first, and then all the other controls you can use. So keep that in mind. If for some reason your lift isn't working and you're up in it, that's how you fix it. It's just you. So nicely, this truck is actually equipped with a power control center. It has stuff for the generator. So it has all that down here, 110, 220, circuit breakers. You got an hour meter. You got their 12 volt gauge for your battery, so to make sure your battery's charging. The generator has its own charging system, and this truck right now, the generator's charging system isn't working, so that could be repaired. Those are all things you can look at and make sure that they're working. It does have a generator. The generator does have its own charging system, and it should work. But then again, so you have your west, east. Okay, these are your. Okay, then you have up, down, stow, unstow, in, out. Emergency power, which is see, it works down here. It's not working up there. So it tells me. So the emergency power, what that is basically an electric motor that runs a second hydraulic pump, and you can see it if you have the door open on the left-hand side, or depending on how your rotation of your lift is. If yours is in the back, it might be opposite of this one. So if your stow is in the rear of the truck, then this one stows in the front. Then you will have, you may have your lift maybe mounted on the truck opposite this one is. This is a GA model. I don't know what that means, but I think that means that it's mounted forward instead of reverse. So, you have all these controls here. The same controls you have up there are all down here, and these you do not need to use a control on switch to use. You just go ahead and use these as you need. I don't know what the override is. I can't. Actually, don't remember what that is. Normal. Oh, that means I think they don't work from up above. They only work from down below. So something like that. So anyway, just a few more things there to show you a little bit about the trucks. I don't know what else I can really tell you, but if you ever get to the point where you're working on it and you get frustrated, just take your time. And it's mainly just hydraulic lines and a couple of switches and very little electronics on these things. They're very, very simple. The electronics are basically the solenoids in the back, which are right here on this control panel. They're behind that thing there. You'll find them if you reach your hands behind there. You'll feel them. Those are where the solenoids are that actuate the hydraulics. So you have switches up above. You have connections from there. You have power that goes to those connections, and then it actuates these three actuators right there, and that's how simple it is. So all you need to do is just, make sure your circuits are right, they're working, if their circuits are, working, and that's it. That's all there is to it, and they're all 12 volts. So, except for the, the ones that are wired to the generator. So be aware that there can be some 110, but it's mostly just 12 volts. So anyway, that's what I've learned. You're working on them. I'm no expert, like I said, but maybe that'll help you try and figure out on your own, because I didn't find anything anywhere at all on the internet that could tell you how to work on one of these. So anyway, I'll talk to you later. And please like, share, and subscribe.